The truth is, sometimes we get comfortable with the ordinary, sitting inside the lines others have drawn for us, when there is an entire blank canvas of a world waiting for us to trust fall into solutions to questions not even asked yet, to rise, revise, and recognize that remarkable is not only possible, but it is necessary. It is the result of daring to imagine beyond this partition of parameters, always onwards, upwards, and forwards, towards the whys of ideas redefined, the what-ifs of partnerships, the how can we improve this. This is more than a common belief that in order to succeed, we must always see details 3 steps ahead. This is not about spotting market trends or hopping on bandwagons, because many others have been there, and quite frankly, so have we. But we are also about people. Shorooq, the right fit in the right place, like perfectly timed happenings matching skills with partners already found, where the sum of parts can create platforms only teamwork lets you reach. No, not you, us, plural, collective, a home field advantage, expertise meeting the opportunity of what we did, are doing, and will do, investing in holding open doors wide enough for impact to walk through. So we continue being the outlier, the deviation, the above and beyond expectation, the ones uncomfortable with being ordinary. Today is the day. Join Shorooq Partners.
Welcome everyone to your weekly Founders Crushin It, where every Wednesday at 4 p.m. GST time, we go live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube and grab a conversation with one of the successful founders in our region to learn more about their business, their journey, and their industry. If you're watching this through our LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube, remember to follow, subscribe, and click that bell icon to get notified with all our news, events, and updates. This show is brought to you by Shorooq Partners, the leading tech investor in the Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan. And I'm your host, Tariq Fouad, Head of Growth at Shorooq Partners. And I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever you are. Today, we have the pleasure to host Abrar Ul Haq, Abrar Bajwa, co-founder of Tazah Technologies. Tazah Technologies is the region's fastest growing B2B marketplace that empowers millions of farmers and businesses by providing them access to market and capital. Founded by the leadership team of regional unicorns, in a matter of 8 months, the startup has scaled to multiple geographies, various product lines, and verticals. Obviously, Abrar has over 12 years of experience in strategy, supply chain, and operations with leading companies such as Nestle, L'Oreal, Careem, and Swivel. Prior to joining Careem, Abrar led multi-million-dollar projects on transforming complex supply chains and logistic processes. During his tenure at Careem as a senior director, Abrar led operations for Careem, where he closely worked with product and operational teams to swiftly execute financial and operational turnarounds for the company despite the pandemic. He obviously has also worked with Swivel as general manager, and Abrar helped build a strong team and develop the company post-COVID recovery strategy for the bus hailing service. His career is obviously one to look out for, and he's a phenomenal person to join Founders Crushin It today. Without further ado, I would love to join Abrar to the call. Hi, Abrar. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey Tarek, thank you for having me. Sorry, it's a little late in the day with me fasting, so I'm running on Ampy, so I might not have that kind of energy, but it's probably 1 hour to go to the iftar, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, no, not at all. You're doing really well. Thank you so much for joining. I would love to start off with first, if you can give us a snippet of what Tazah Technology is all about and how did Tazah Technology all started?
Right. So Tazah Technologies is a B2B agri marketplace that connects farmers and businesses. and in turn sort of provides access to capital and market to millions of farmers and businesses. Tazah is basically required in markets, especially in developing markets where there is a high fragmentation in the farm base, and there's a very high fragmentation on the demand side, which is basically restaurants and small fruits and vegetable sellers, and an inefficient supply chain in the middle. So what Tazah does is, through its B2B aggregation on both demand and supply side, provides a better market access to farmers who are trying to sell different kinds of producers, and at the same time provides more transparency, lower procurement effort, and more consistency for businesses that are trying to procure fresh produce. At the same time, these markets are extremely undercapitalized. So what Tazah does is provide some access to capital through the proprietary data and technology that Tazah is building. So that's what Tazah does. Tazah came about when me and Mohsin were working together at Careem and thinking about building something, or dreaming actually of building something of our own. And at one point in time, once we started looking at different spaces in Pakistan, trying to understand where can we create the largest impact. We were big believers in technology. We were privileged also to have worked at Careem and learned quite a few things about scaling and building large startups and marketplaces. So we started looking at multiple spaces. Eventually, ended up zeroing in on the agriculture space, and then essentially started a small pilot, and then started to raise money and got into this full time. So it's a very long journey, a very difficult journey also, if I may. But yeah, it has been great so far.
Definitely, it's such a great inspiration to also be moving across different sectors, from logistics and mobility to agriculture. Interested, to know, and for all the aspiring founders that are out there, what did you find similarities between both sectors, and what did appeal you to the agri-business, right? Why didn't you find yourself, for example, doing something else in the mobility and logistics business?
So as far as I'm concerned, and to a great extent, my co-founder Mohsin is also very similar in this aspect, that we've taken on challenges in our life which were very dissimilar to what we were doing in the past. So every job that I've done, or every sort of educational degree that I've done, has been very different from what I've done in the past. And over the period of time I have learned, and over a period of time by doing this over again, I've learned is how do you hack success? How do you be successful at things, right? And that comes in handy when you're again venturing into something which when you started out had no clue about. So I mean, in terms of my jobs, I was working at I was in sales at Nestle. Then I got into market research for polyester, which is an industrial chemical at ICI. Then I got into supply chain within ICI for soda ash. So I've really taken up challenges in my life which I had no clue about, and eventually learned to be successful at them. So same is true for Mohsin also. In terms of why we ended up in agriculture, I think what we think about, how we sort of articulate this, is that possibly we were building towards, all our life we were building towards all the skills that we've learned. We were building towards solving this great challenge that we finally came across, which is agriculture. So all the skills, whether they're in logistics, whether they're in finance, supply chain, whether they're in marketing, whether they're in technology, engineering, building marketplaces, HR, everything that we learned in our lives was essentially to solve this final problem, this big problem that we eventually chose and jumped into. Why agriculture? Why not something else? I would say it's mainly because if you want to solve, there's of course capitalism, but if you want to solve for the masses, if you want to solve for something much, much bigger than yourself, then there is no better space than agriculture. There's no better space than food, because if you're the kind of problems that we're solving are basically solving for food security for
human
our
needs.
Future generations.
Exactly.
Human needs, food security for our future generations, upward mobility for one of the most vulnerable community globally, which is farmers. So what we're also solving for is food price inflation. What we're solving for is lower procurement friction in the food supply chain. So these are problems that somebody has to take on. These are problems which are not sexy, which require significantly more effort than doing your normal startups. So somebody had to do them. We felt that we were the right team for it. And yes, we started it,
Beautiful.
and alhamdulillah, so far so good.
Alhamdulillah. Abrar, to educate us here a little bit more on what today's farmers' business look like and the challenges they're facing, and then how does Tazah Technology transfer that life they had to what they can become or what they can have, and educate us a little bit more there.
So when you look at farmers, you're thinking about a cohort of our population which is very vulnerable to extreme events. These are people who are very comfortable with high levels of risk. Why? Because once they put in their crops, or put in the seed, cultivate the seed, what they are vulnerable to is weather events. What they're vulnerable to is other pesticide or other sort of pest attack events. What they are vulnerable to are what everything else happens to in the outside market, which is, for example, the pricing risks that they take. So these are people who have very high risk, high risk appetite. These are people who generally see either like very, very strong years or very bad years, and they have gotten themselves comfortable with this. These are people who have very limited access to information, which essentially sort of increases the risk that they're taking. These are people who have, because they have lived in this lifestyle or in this cycle of very high highs and very low lows. These are people who don't eventually end up having a lot of capital, and then these are people who, considering that the only thing they really know well is how to farm, they don't have great access to market or great marketing abilities, right? So once Tazah comes in, it tries to address most of these access problems that they have. In terms of access to market, Tazah provides them an alternative to their existing selling channels. In terms of access to capital, Tazah provides them financing in different forms and shapes based on the transaction data that Tazah has done with these people. And then Tazah also provides them access to information through some of our partnership programs that we do with our partners. So in doing so, what we have is we simplify the lives of these people. We de-risk some of the daily activities that they take on, and we eventually ensure that they encounter upward economic and social mobility. So we're striving for all of that to happen.
Love that. Thank you so much, Abrar. Very, very informative. I would like to remind everybody watching us today is that this is a great opportunity for you to ask Abrar right away questions on agribusiness or any questions that you find useful to get to know about business, leadership, operations, supply chain, so on and so forth. We've got a great person with us on Founders Crushin It, and this is a great platform for you to ask any questions. And if you have any questions to Shorooq Partners, feel free to jot them down on the comment section, and we'll definitely get to them by the end of this session. Abrar, my follow-up question would be, Tazah Technologies is a name now that is well known, at least in Pakistan. And the way you and your team has reached there is quite inspirational. I wanted to understand what are maybe you think are the underlying competitive strengths that Tazah Technology has built in its arsenal that would actually make it compete in a very cutthroat business, I would say. Margins are quite low and the risks are quite high.
I think 3 or 4 things over a period of time. What we built, one is, of course, great talent and culture, which is our biggest competitive advantage. While we can raise significantly more money than anybody else in the space, or we have better technology, but what really sets us apart as a company is the pool of talent that we've built, which for example specializes in the specific areas that we've hired them for, which is a great mix of startup hustle and subject matter expertise. The culture is extremely friendly, where and extremely open, where people can have very, very, very candid and transparent conversations with each other very easily without the fear of any kind of consequences. But at the same time, the culture is also extremely high accountability, high ownership, and highly demanding. Finding this great mix is super important for a lot of organizations, because if you err on the side of it being too demanding, then there's a risk of this moving towards the culture being very toxic. On the other hand, if the culture is too friendly, and people are people are just chilling, so you end up risking being in a situation where there's people are very happy, but not a lot of work is being done, right? So we've been able to so far crack the right mix of this friendliness, openness, transparency, coupled with high accountability, high ownership, and high demand on every team. So I think that culture has really helped us scale super fast in a market which, like you said, is super competitive. I would say very competitive from like a technology space point of view, but very competitive from what we.
I think we've lost you there, Abrar. The internet connection is a little bit lagging there. Let's wait till Abrar comes online. I would like to remind everyone that is watching us to jot your comments jot your questions in the comment section. If you ever wanted to get any founder on Founders Crushin It, or if you're a partner looking to sponsor Founders Crushin It, and to do something with Shorooq Partners, please come in and connect with us directly. We'll be happy to do that right away. Thank you so much, Abrar, for coming in. We lost you there for a few seconds, but you were saying about team culture. So maybe
Yes.
if you can take us.
So I think we've been able to build the right mix of high accountability while being high transparency or high friendliness, and this allows us to do significantly more than what we could have done in a hierarchical structure or in a very sort of structured environment. We are not very structured. We just build the right we try to build the right magnitude of while giving the people a lot of empowerment to do what they want to do, and allowing them the space to excel at what they do, and essentially learning from those sort of success stories and implementing them organization-wide. A lot of things that we do are still like early stage. We're still learning a lot of things that about the environment, about the market, about agri, about food. So keeping this kind of culture, which is which drives accountability while keeping things very interesting and friendly for everyone, really helps. In addition to this, I think technology eventually is going to be a competitive advantage in a space that we are in. We are in a space which needs disruption from businesses that are decades or even centuries old. The relationships in the traditional markets are if not centuries, decades old. Again, if there has to be one long-term competitive advantage in this space, it's the kind of technology that we build. It's the kind of data. It's the kind of utility that we get out of the data that we, in the process collect. So that's super important. But I think at this point in time, these are the two things. In addition to this, essentially, all of this translating into a lot of confidence from investors in Tazah. All of that sort of coupling together is giving us a lot of confidence in growing our business, getting into different verticals, improving our P&L. So all of these things that we do. But if I were to go back to the beginning of your question, it's basically the culture that essentially sets the org apart from everybody else, and then there are other things on top.
Very clear. I would like to bring in a few questions from the audience. At least I'll pick one now. Thank you so much, Sharif, for asking a beautiful question. So Sharif is asking, when tackling a fragmented agricultural sector, do you see this as a distribution logistics problem or more of a financial problem where majority of the players are small farmers that live corp harvest to corp harvest?
So it's a great question. We feel that it's a both problem. It's a supply chain problem, yes, but it's compounded by the farmers not being well capitalized and having poor access to capital. the poor access to capital leads to them having very little pricing power, and all of this leads to a vicious cycle, right? So the solution to the problems of the farmers cannot be just one leg. It cannot just be supply chain. It cannot just be better access to market. The minimum viable solution to the problems that we're solving is basically access to capital and market in tandem, and then you could look at some of these other problems to solve. So financial interference or financial intervention in this space is super important, and will go hand in hand with the supply chain solutions that we built. One cannot be successful without the other, and that is my view, limited view on the market.
Thank you so much, Sharif, for a beautiful question. Abrar, my follow-up question here is, one might think that putting technology through to farmers that might not necessarily be well equipped, I would say, to meet today's technological demands in a sense. I'm interested in understanding what was your journey trying to convert farmers into using Tazah Technologies, right? And in kind of coming on board, what could be some of the challenges you faced, or to the contrary, maybe it actually was a lot easier to convert them than else.
So I think that any solution that we build has to be compatible with the kind of customers that we work with. In this case, the farmers are our customers for technology. And the hard fact and the hard truth is that currently, because of various reasons, one, of course, access to 3G and 4G networks, and then, of course, for the smartphones being a little expensive, and then literacy being another deterrent, the technology penetration that Pakistan has is not great when it comes to the farmer market. And the solutions that we're building are a mix of online plus offline solutions. They're a mix of in-person, physical plus technology solutions. And they will eventually transition into like full technology, 100% technology solutions. So today, the farmers that we work with are most comfortable offline, while we have say hundreds of farmers online also registered on the platform. But the transaction part on the farmer side still happens mainly offline. The offline, when I say offline, it's basically usage of tools like WhatsApp, which is pretty prevalent and common in that TG or in that customer group. Essentially, this will transition into something more online or more digital or more tech savvy at a later stage. We're already in the process of building our farmer app, which will slowly and gradually become a more central part of the farmers' lives. But today it's offline, and we'll sort of build on top of this offline business that we build.
And that's actually very promising to hear. It comes to my mind next is a question that you feel free to not answer, but would be interested in understanding what is next for Tazah Technology over the next year or two, mid or long term, and do we see Tazah Technology expanding in other markets other than Pakistan?
Right. So multiple dimensions to growth that Tazah has from where it is today. While the first 7 or 8 months were mostly spent on figuring out the PMF, building a very strong team, building technology, of course, expanding a bit here and there. So we expanded into 3 geographies in Pakistan, 3 of the largest cities in Pakistan. But mostly it was figuring out the PMF. Very soon, we are going to put our feet on the pedal again and get into expansion mode. When I say expansion, there are 3 or 4 ways to expand in it. So one is, of course, expanding into tier 2 cities within Pakistan or tier 3 cities within Pakistan. That is on the cards. To expansion outside Pakistan, there is some work already being done on that part. We've already started transacting with some of our business partners in the Middle East. And therefore, when more of this becomes common knowledge, we'll, of course, make a proper announcement about it. So geographical expansion is one piece of it. 2 is expansion into different categories within agriculture. So we started out with vegetables. We ventured into fruits very quickly. There is more expansion coming in that sector also, but more on that as we announce it properly and as we accelerate. but there is a large space of within grains and meat and milk and some of these other products that remains unexplored, but is in the works and is going to be announced very soon. Three, what we also want to expand into and can expand into is on a product line basis, right? So supply chain product is one part of the business. Financial intervention, fintech is another part of the business. Fortunately or unfortunately, the space that we're in is extremely undercapitalized. The businesses we serve bottom of the pyramid on both supply and demand side. Both have access, capital needs, and therefore we've already started pilots on both supply and demand side to improve the capitalization of our customers and our suppliers being farmers. So that is another expansion on top of what we do. And then, of course, there are multiple other product lines that you can get into. So I feel that while we've spent 8 months in the market, we are very early in a very large market, and the opportunities or growth multipliers are many, and therefore it is. It just sort of keeps us up at night, gets us super excited that all the things that we can do now. Now that we have, of course, we are more capitalized now ourselves. We have a very strong team with us now, and we have technology working for us. So now, we can go ballistic and get into multiple parts of businesses and essentially with a clear strategy. So yeah, very exciting times.
Well, with that passion, Abrar, I wanted to kind of close our short yet very informative chat with what would you describe Tazah Technologies with if it was one word that you can use?
One word is a little too short, but I'd say
Tazah.
Tazah.
Tazah is
Tazah
Tazah.
fresh. Tazah is Tazah. Tazah is fresh. Tazah is exciting. Tazah is also, I think, empowering. Essentially, it's going to empower millions of people. So Tazah is also that. But exciting, empowering, and so much more. So again, day zero, and lots more to come.
Beautiful. And lots of great wishes and thanks from our audience. Ahmed Ashur, thank you so much for joining us. He's thanking you for sharing all your knowledge. Ghassan Naufal, same, thanking you for sharing with everyone your expertise there. And then from myself as well, and from Shorooq Partners, Abrar, we really we're humbled to be part of your journey, and we're looking forward to working very closely with you over the next few years to come. So thank you so much again for joining me today. Even with you fasting, you had a beautiful amount of energy, Abrar. So I wouldn't discount that.
No. So the only thing that really gets me excited, even with the fast and all this, is Tazah, right? So I think if there was anything else, if you were told me that let's go play a bowling match or let's go go do something else, I would say no, I have no energy. But the only thing that I have energy for is Tazah.
No, beautiful, and you did a tremendous job. I wish you all the very best. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tariq. Thank you.
So from myself and Shorooq Partners, and obviously from my guest Abrar, wish you all Ramadan Kareem, and obviously a great week to come and a great weekend to come. Remember, reach out to us should you have any questions on Founders Crushin It, or should you want to partner with us on Founders Crushin It. Also, feel free to tell us who out of our portfolio you would like to see on Founders Crushin It. From myself and Shorooq Partners, wish you all a beautiful evening. Thank you.